Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear that?
Quiet!
Okay, Alan Brock is not here today. He's taking care of his dog. It's really pretty serious. You know, he loves that dog. It's his family. So, can everybody hear me back there? Louder? Is this better? Okay. And we got Bill Sherrod here. He's the managing director of Flight Line Ops. He's going to be the main speaker today, and we're going to get to him in a minute just to cover some stuff. Jay Cooley. We got the golf tournament. Is everybody aware of the golf tournament? Where's Jay at? Jay Cooley. We got 1 minute to talk about the golf tournament.
1 minute.
The speakers aren't working at the back of the room. I don't know why not. Anybody interested in signing up for the golf tournament? We have to have the final numbers by Friday. So I have a sheet. If you haven't been contacted or you haven't paid and you're interested, you don't have your group or you need a group, please come and see me before you leave and we'll get you signed up. So the golf outing is Monday, June 12th at Lake Grapevine at 8 a.m. The sign up is at 7 a.m. so you can get warmed up and everything. It's pretty early, but we're going to beat the heat. So it's $50. It's probably the last time it'll be $50 because the price of fertilizer and shipping and everything else goes up, and we're trying to keep it as affordable as possible. But please come out and join us and have a great time of golf. And afterwards, happy hour. They've got a nice lounge there, and we'll have some prizes. So please see me before you leave, and we'll get you signed up. All right, there's my minute.
Okay, we got. So one thing I'd like to point out, Alan's done such a great job getting this established and everything. And every Tuesday night, new captains, they have a dinner and they want several, Alan, myself, Bob Lyons, Mike Miller started doing it. But it's amazing. Alan Johnson, managing director of training, he gets up there and gives a talk and he tells all of them about the Gray Eagles. And it is amazing the reception that they get. I'd like to know who is here right now. We just had, I can't think of his name, Mark Sherman, Lamar Kearney, Kurt Denstrick. These guys are here because they just retired, right? When did y'all retire? One of them retired yesterday, but so we're talking about getting after it. Then the next thing I want to know is who is here, a member of the Gray Eagle that has not retired yet? Cindy? Cindy? Yeah, we got several.
Sandy?
Quite a few. And then the next thing I'd like to know is who has their child with them today? That is a pilot for American Airlines. We got Paige Bass. Who else? Got your son? Yeah. So we got several. So this is really turning into a legacy thing. One other thing I'd like to point out is Marcy. She's from the union. I had ACL surgery last year, and when I got all the printout, it was just mind-boggling. And I just mentioned it to her, and she had Penny Ballou call me and took care of everything. The assets we have over at APA is unbelievable. And today we've got the president and vice president of APA, and they're going to be talking after Bill talks. So at this time, Bill, you got it.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. Hey, you know, this is my first time in a meeting. I am a lifetime member, so thank you very much for welcoming me in. And it's great to see everybody here. A lot of pilots I remember from before, not being based in DFW, but on the East Coast. So it's so great to see everyone here now. And a couple of things I want to talk about today. You know, I talked with Alan, and he said, look, Bill, we want to hear from you and what your experiences were as a pilot at American, because what we're trying to do now is to promote the airline and have those pilots that want to do more than just fly the line. Either they want to do union work, they want to do IOC duty pilot, those sort of things. And I have a little bit of a background that's somewhat different than most pilots. I want to explain a lot of that today and share what I have, my experience in the IOC. So we'll go through a couple things. I'll talk about my background. I was an IOC director for a little over 2 years. One of the first ones to do that from Kimball Stone asked me to do it. And I'll finish up with what my current role is right now and where we stand with the airline with our chief pilots. So real quick, yes sir?
I'm stupid, what's an IOC?
We'll get into that. I asked the same question, what's IOC mean? It's Integrated Operations Center. It's the nerve center of the airline, how we run. So anyway, I am from the Northeast Coast. I was based in New York for 21 years. I was asked to become a chief pilot in Philadelphia after our merger because they want to have the legacy AA pilots and the U.S. Airways pilots come together, and it was a fantastic opportunity. I love being a Czech pilot. It was, I thought, the best job we had in my career, but was asked to become a servant leader and to represent the pilots. That was probably one of the best things I'd ever done. Worked my way up to director of flight in Philadelphia, and I think some of you remember Captain Kimball Stone, right? He was our vice president of flight for years. He asked me, what do you want to do, Bill? And I said, well, I think that I want to do something different than the flight department. Is there something available? And he said, I have something for you. And it's going to put you in your discomfort zone is a good way to say it. But I think that you can thrive, and we'd like to have a pilot run the airline in the IOC, which is our Integrated Operations Center. So I started that back in the end of 2020. So what I'd like to do is kind of go through a little bit about our operations, what I did there as a pilot and supporting. And as you can see here, anybody not seen the IOC before? Anybody in here? It was built in 2015. We have 1,600 people work there, but that is the nerve center of American Airlines, running 6,000 flights a day, mainline and regional, every single day. Incredible operation. So this is where all the action happens. A lot of pilots think this is where there is turmoil, especially with those days with bad weather. As we know here in DFW, how many bad weather days do we have here? Quite a few, exactly. So this is a calm picture of the IOC on a somewhat normal day, but it does get very busy at times. In the IOC, there's operational control of the airline, responsible for our wholly owns as well as our mainline aircraft. So everything happens there with maintenance and all I'll talk about as well. But we also have logistical coordination, being from moving aircraft parts to an aircraft that may be stuck in Puerto Vallarta, whatever else. And also we have emergency security management. For God forbid, we have to have an aircraft accident or incident, right? We have to have policies, procedures there to be run through for the safety of the passengers of the crew and get the airline running again. So that is a big element as well. We'll kind of go through departments quickly. We start with dispatch. All of you former pilots know dispatch, right? The operation control between the pilots, the captain and the airline, and both sign the flight plan together. That's a very big part. We have our operations coordinators. They are actually within a unit themselves based on the type of aircraft that will, if there's a maintenance delay, they'll be able to move another aircraft in position, move a crew from another flight, move ups, what they call, etc. How many people here know that we have our own actual air traffic control coordinating group? Right, a lot of pilots don't know that we have our own ATC coordinators, that if you have a wheels up time or something where you have a crew delay, our actual IOC are the ones that talk to the command center and be able to have those pilots depart in time. A lot of pilots don't understand that. They think that's just the NOM, the National Airspace Center there in Virginia that controls that, but that's not true. We all have our individual ATC coordinators that will ensure that our aircraft can get on time before our crews time out. Our routers are just very simple. They're the ones that look at the maintenance of the aircraft and can actually fly a certain line of flying. If they can't, they do an aircraft swap. CLP, central load planning, is our weight and balance. Very important part of it. For all of you retired, you know about an hour prior to get your flight plan. Those planners within CLP will be running the numbers for cargo and fuel up to 3 hours prior. So very, very important part. MOC, huge in the IOC because they're the ones who are looking at the aircraft, the swaps we can make for unforecasted maintenance problems. Flight planning support. Our flight that flies to Delhi, that's one of our most risky flights out of JFK. And why is that? All of the overflight permits from all the Uzbekistans and all of that have to be coordinated. And even through our governmental affairs, for a lot of our routes that we don't even know about, that they are in charge of to get those overflight rights. So they're very good on that as well. We have our own weather forecasting company. How many of you knew that? Good. A lot of people thought it was a third party, but no, we actually have our own WSI that will coordinate with the weather company themselves and be the ones to give us our information for planning flights. Said before, EP&R, which is basically emergency planning response and SIRS, they're a big part on how we're going to get the airline back together if we do have an incident or accident. Crew tracking and scheduling. I know a lot of pilots are not real happy about scheduling and tracking, disrupts your life as always, but when you think about it, you have 6,000 flights a day. Something's going to go wrong in there. Trackers have to be the ones to make the best either cancellations or move-ups, and I can't think of a worse time than a bad IROP situation. The weather's bad, a lot of turmoil there, how to get the schedule back together, so it's kind of a thankless job. We also have the customer service, SCMS. What they do is look at the passengers with our reservations. We have a cancellation. How are we going to move all those passengers on and get to their destinations? A lot of it's coordination within our One World partners as well. So not just American Metal, but there are others. Corporate security is there. As the IOC director, when I work directly with them as the operations manager, if we have an issue in Bogota or somewhere else where we have to get the crew out of there, we'll listen to the corporate security to say this is a high level security threat. If we have to get an actual aircraft to fly down and pull our crew out, we will do that. So we're very closely with them. Okay, most of you don't even know what the IOC duty pilot is. About, 2017, I was part of that program where we have line pilots that are on special assignment, most of them, and the others are full-time now that are facilitators for our pilots in the operation. You have a problem with your hotel, can't get a hold of trackers, whatever. Our pilots now can call the IOC duty pilot, and they will facilitate through the processes to make sure that they can get back on schedule or whatever else. So it's kind of groundbreaking. I know Delta United had a similar title before, but it took us till 2017 to realize the value of having a pilot actually there on the bridge, available to make things happen. The problems with that is they're not management. They are not leaders in that way. They are only ones who can facilitate through to our chiefs. So we've had a couple issues with that, giving them more, I would say, authority, if you will. So we have to kind of pull back the rest of the airline and say, look, we need to go through our chief pilots, et cetera, for that. And last but not least, we have flights early daily ops representing our flight attendants there, very integral. So you can see these departments all have to be interconnected. Most of the time they are, sometimes they're not. And that's where we run into problems with communication, as many of you know before. Quickly go through these slides. Dispatch is one of the biggest functions we have because they're involved with the planning, the flight following, and any other issues they have with their crews. I think at American Airlines, we can do a much better job as far as the relationship with dispatch. We get everyone into training, do an awesome job, get them out there and train, but we've never really focused on that dispatcher-pilot relationship. And if you go in the IOC, it's amazing with all these tools here, the automation, they know exactly when you're 2 miles off course. There are flags that are out there. If you're descending for an emergency and you say you don't have time for dispatch, they're already calling ahead for you, declaring an emergency with ATC. A lot of people don't know that. So we're trying to educate a lot of pilots. You're probably saying, what is this? What's a tarmac monitor? Does anybody remember years ago when JetBlue had 7 hours in the tarmac when the passengers couldn't get off the airplane, right? And the DOT came around and said, no more. The basic rule is 3 hours domestic and 4 hours international for the ability to get off the aircraft. Well, any airplane we fly in our system, we will actually track the tarmac rule. That's any airplane anywhere we fly. So within the IOC, we can monitor that, and if we need to call ATC and bring them back to the gate, it's pretty amazing situational awareness when you see that monitor delay. So very, very expensive if we bust those rules. So within here it says the duration, obviously the one on the highest on the side. It's a very useful tool, and all of the departments in the IOC will see this. That's how important it is. So I believe it's over $30,000 fine now if you bust that, per passenger, per occurrence. Pretty big. Now with a diversion tracker here, the yellow means it's international flight, and the green, it tells you exactly the reason why we have a diversion here and the downline impact. So again, this is all situational awareness that we have, especially myself on the bridge. Things are coming forward and making sure we plan ahead. I talked about dispatch before, but the operations coordinators run the airline. They really do. Because you can see with MOC, if there's any routing change, they have to be able to swap into the aircraft out, but we have to look at the crew time. Are they legal for 117? And we also look at the schedule efficiencies with any kind of diversions, tarmac delays. How are we going to recover that aircraft and crew going forward? So they actually work within a unit. So say you have a 321, you have an operations coordinator, you have a crew coordinator, a router, and SCSM. So they work all as one unit. So a lot of our pilots will be working through the coordinator to get back on schedule. And it's really amazing. I don't know if you ever have a chance to get in the IOC to see all this through 6,000 flights a day. It was an honor for me to work in there and be in charge of that. But you can see from these tools, it's pretty spectacular. For most of us going out flying an airplane in the sky, to think that there are almost 6,000 other American Airlines flights flying that day, it's pretty spectacular. Again, I talked about the ATC coordinator, works closely with the command center and with the bridge, with myself making decisions for what flights have priority to get back. Do you think there are any VIPs in our flights? Any executives? Do you think they're paying attention to what's going on with them? Well, absolutely. And it could be other VIPs, not just American Airlines, that will be able to work with our ATC system here and ensure that they can be taken care of. COP, Central Load Plan, again, it's a constant evaluation of what's going to be the most optimum for cargo versus fuel, that sort of thing. And the biggest disruption we have is we have a diversion. What if a passenger wants to get off an airplane? They land in Atlantic City and they're supposed to go to Philly. Can the passengers get off the airplane? They can. But now, what are you going to do as far as trying to go back with CLP and getting the weight of them, to their bags taken off, et cetera. So it gets very complicated. Most operations are pretty straightforward. When you get into IROPS and those things, they get very, very busy, especially with diversions going across the Atlantic to go into Keflavik, whatever else. We actually fell short pretty hard on that about 4 months ago, and we learned a lot from it about coordination with stations that don't have our support personnel. So CLP actually is a very big effect on our planning for our airline. Last but not least here, SCSM will be the ones looking at the passengers for recovery. I'll give you a quick example. We have what we call high-risk flights every night. Now the JFK to Tel Aviv is one, Doha, Qatar is another one, and Delhi. Very, very high risk because anything goes wrong with the crew or maintenance, whatever else, hugely impactful on the customers and recovery. To give you an example, our one flight that goes to Doha, the sign-in time is 0020 in the morning. Hour prior to their departure is 0120. It's happened before where a pilot misreads his or her schedule and is a day off. They're commuting in and they're off by a day. That impact, it happens. Everyone makes mistakes. That flight will delay for 12 hours to get another crew out. What would that do to those passengers going to Doha? They're all going to miss their connections to Karachi, Kathmandu, all over the world. So I had one night where we had 305 passengers on board. The next day when they left, we had 40. Hugely impactful. So, but we pivoted and made it work, and we were doing with our One World partners. So a lot of the SCSMs will make that recovery. And you see it's all one integrated unit. Thanks. Okay. The command center is kind of like the war room. We've had this activated more times than we care to see. One of the times was the Afghan refugee crisis. Remember during CRAF? Deborah, you were there, obviously, and the whole team was up there as far as coordinating the flights from all over the world and the crew. A lot of times we'll just have our captain's upgrade. They go up there and listen to Gary talks about dispatch. So we'll use it. We have corporate drills there as well, but it's 24/7 ready to go if we have to use it with all the technology there. And you can see the teleconference secure and satellite is pretty spectacular. I think all of our pilots at one time have been through there, but I had it activated one time. I'll tell you about here. It was probably aged 5 years that day, working on the bridge. So as an IOC director, it was my honor to do it as a 787 captain. Number one, I got a lot of people raising their eyebrows saying from dispatch, what's this? Oh man, we have a pilot on board here and they're gonna be running the airline. Well, it was a huge honor because I had a steep learning curve, right? But being the operations security manager, you were in charge of the security of the entire airline. Was a really, really honorable thing to have, but somewhat scary at times. But the contacts that I had and the support was phenomenal going forward. So that's why I felt good as a pilot to be able to have that honor to do it. You're responsible for running the airline when you're on shift. 12-hour shifts, usually 4 or 5 in a row. So the midnight to 6 a.m., after the 5th day, you're like a zombie walking around after that. But that's how we had to run it. There were 4 other IOC directors, all dispatch, myself, which is as a pilot. The focus on current day, but more importantly, the next day. If we know in DFW we're going to have a major line of weather coming through here, we have to plan ahead, even on the overnights, of how we're going to manage with our local air traffic control and be able to look at our crew times, what's going to happen. Because if we have 3,000 mainline flights, we don't want to minimize the impact of those passengers because they're so tight. Consultant for operational decisions, I was last in line to make a decision on that, which was good because you take in all your input, and it made me grow a lot as a person, as a pilot. You learn more from the times you make mistakes, as always. But it was phenomenal. My perspectives here. We have a very tight schedule at American Airlines. So besides balancing resources, develop alternate plans, manage cancellation delays, communicate, coordinate, hey, all big words, all big buzzwords. But the most important thing is having a plan, always, as a backup. November 11th last year, beautiful day in the morning, an unforecasted thunderstorm that came into DFW and it had 80 diversions. 80. Do you know how many arrivals we have in Dallas at the 7 a.m. bank, just American? 110 airplanes coming to land in 1 hour. People don't think about that. Okay, that's huge. That's mainline and regional, right? So this storm came in out of nowhere. Welcome to Texas, but that saved us that day. Because what happened was, about 8:30 in the morning, I got a call from DFW Control Center, says we have a fire at the fuel farm, just the west side of the airport. Everything's shut down. Fuel is shut down. For all carriers, it's all underground. We had 90 aircraft inbound to the airport this time. So what are you thinking about that? We're okay for now, right? But what about those planes on the gate? They can't get any fuel at all. Now you have 90 aircraft coming inbound to land, all waiting for a gate at one time. So how do you handle that? We activated the command center. I ran the operation from the bridge. And David Seymour is on there. What's the plan, Bill? What do we have right now? What is our status? I gave him the longest time for our tarmac delay waiting for a gate. We had to take planes off the gates and back on, tow them back on and off so we don't have tarmac issues. We did a nationwide ground stop. So all flights coming to DFW were stopped on the ground for 3 hours. So what does that impact for the rest of the day? Feel better, right? No, because how are we recovering all those planes coming in later? And by the way, we landed 30 aircraft short of the field. So think about as a captain, your dispatcher says, oh, by the way, Captain, due to emergency in DFW, we need you to land in Memphis. Kind of startles a lot of people, doesn't it? That's going to be, well, wait a minute. So how do you communicate that from the bridge out to all the dispatchers? Everyone was compliant, did a phenomenal job. Worked with the fire marshal and Jim Moses from the senior vice president of DFW was on, got a minute-by-minute update on the valves. And they finally got them back. We were able to release everyone to come in. We only ended up with 60 cancellations that day. Not bad, but for 4 hours was hell. It was probably the worst experience I ever had, but it made me grow, and I thought that having the foresight to know what it would be like as the pilot being told to land, that's very troubling, right? Why have to land in Memphis? I'm on my way J6 going down to DFW, what's going on now? We made sure all the dispatchers explained the reason why. We have an emergency fuel situation in Dallas going forward. That was one. The one more I want to tell you about that was big in my heart. Anybody remember Hurricane Ida a couple years ago? It was down in New Orleans. A long story short, the storm was supposed to go just to the southeast and head the northeast of New Orleans. And we were planning on getting most of the aircraft out of there, have no terminators in New Orleans, just to be safe. Well, we did that, but all of a sudden the storm made a more of a turn toward the northwest and came in. And we had 46 crew members in the hotels. We had early terminators, they were there in the hotels. How are we going to get those crew members out? Most of the aircraft had already gotten airborne. They said New Orleans Tower was going to close that night. Houston Center was going to be operational. So quickly we had to make it work. We got a 321 extra section, flew it down from Dallas. The crew was ready to go, saying, you were just down there as a rescue mission to get out any passengers, more importantly our crew right now, and get them out as soon as possible. We have about a 2-hour window of this hurricane. But for all us pilots, and when you listen, it was very interesting. Talked to the captain personally, because it was something out of the ordinary. He was so upset because there was a localizer only approach available. That was it. I'm not kidding. To runway 11. And for those who fly the Airbus, it's kind of a pain, right? As far as getting the ploop pages and all, it could be done. But he was so in the weeds, worried about the NOTAMs and flying. I said, we're going to make it work. We have these crew members to get out. It's going to work out. And I sat back for a second. I said, wait a minute, what are the winds? They're down the runway 15 knots. Called them back. I said, guess what? Why don't you land runway 2 with a crosswind? Oh, okay, thanks a lot. See ya. That was it. But it just tells you the human element when you're there, thinking about you have to perform to get there and get the crew members out, that you kind of get myopic the way you looked. Just sit back and say, we'll just land the other runway. He killed it, knocked it out of the park, went in there, we got all the crew members, a few other non-revs out, and in about 90 minutes later, the storm hit the field. Severe damage. That was like a big win. And I was very thankful to all of us on the bridge to make it happen, getting that plane, and I reached out to the captain and the FO and said, you guys rocked it. Thank you so much for just stepping up and do it. And he really, hey, I'm really sorry, man. I should be worried about a localizer. I said, that's okay. That's what we're here for, right? But go practice your localizer approaches. So anyway, that was just, I could talk on and on about the stories there, but it was pretty amazing. So now, in December, I'm honored now to become the Managing Director of Flight Line Operations. So you might ask what that is. I am in charge of the chief pilots and the directors of flight of the operation here. And this is the current lineup. We actually had pictures taken, it's about 3 months ago when we had our chief pilot meeting. See a couple new faces here. My job is to enforce policy and make sure I have support for them, supporting our pilots in the operation. I'm honored to do that. It's kind of nice being out of the IOC just to say that, a little less stress. But we have so many talented people on this picture, but I also want to say that the relationships they have with the pilots and with the APA is the best I've ever seen. You can see a couple of these photos now are brand new. They've just been announced. In fact, these two for DFW have been announced today from Tom, and more to come. We're trying to get more and more talent to come through American Airlines. The years of having a chief pilot of 10 years in the seat are gone. No more. We need to have people cycle through and have newer, younger talent to come through and make sure that we're living in the now, right? It's a very progressive society, and the generational divide we have between the senior captains now and the very junior is pretty significant. So we're adapting the flight department and looking more for better times ahead. So this is a team for now. Good time. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up here real quick. As my job here is to supervise the flight directors and the chiefs. Any kind of flight operations policy procedures, they're in place, but we'll make a little bit of changes here now. I work with Deborah Hecker here for policies procedures, and we're constantly refining now uniform changes. We're looking at beards for pilots, which is not a popular thing right now, but we have to look at, is that generational and all? They are asking, why are some carriers wearing beards and we're not at American? Well, we're straight off of safety right now. We're doing a deep dive, looking into it, but we have to keep up with the times. So that's why we work all together and examine that going forward to see if that's going to be something we can do. As of right now, safety-wise, for the TSOs and everything else, we don't see it at this point. Uniforms and image standards, kind of the same thing. Our lovely crew meals, we'll try to change them up. We've got a lot of feedback. As you know, the people are not happy with our crew meals, and they really go toward the passenger, right? But we worry about our pilots, make sure they're being fed correctly and that. So we'll work through them and make sure we have good options. And last but not least, I am the the Part 117 chief pilot for the airlines. So when you look at the operating certificate for American, I'm the ultimate chief pilot, which is as a figurehead. There are others like John Dudley will be their operations certificate as well. So they assign me to that. But I give you my word, we're doing everything we can to improve the lives of our pilots here in this company, and we're really at a good point now. And going forward, that I'm excited for where our company is driven. We've had a lot of tough years all the way around with the mergers, back and forth, but I think everyone's working their hardest and we're in a good position. Okay, anybody for questions? Good. Not too long. Yes, sir.
How you feel about the summer coming?
Well, the corporate speak is, oh, we're good, right? I'm not saying that.
You have to do it.
Yes. No, we all have to perform. I will say this, we've been very blessed with our weather. It's been really good this year, right? Even Dallas-Fort Worth has been very good. Our numbers over Memorial Day are the best in our company's history, attributable to our pilots. I mean, they're really the ones that are making the metal move and working together, making good decisions. We're going to continue that going forward. I know that it's good with the union now. We have contracted that through and get back past a lot of tough times we've all had. I think that's going to help overall. And all of us here want to see American be the #1 airline. We have a lot of struggles from history and that, but I'm very hopeful this year we're as good a position we can be, and that's not me drinking the Kool-Aid by any means, but we're making better decisions now all the way around. We have a lot of work to do. The hotel situation, the IOC still needs to be fixed. And little things like that are very disruptive during bad IROPS, and we're going to have bad weather. It's going to happen. We have hurricane season and everything else, but it's how we can correct back and be able to pivot and get back the airline running again is going to be our difficulty, as it was before. But we have better tools now. I don't have time to talk about different programs we brought down for delaying crews now. Instead of bringing everybody in and diverting, we'll delay them up line stations and that sort of thing. But I feel much better than last year, personally, but it's good. Thank you, Grayson.
Bill, repeat the question before you answer, please.
He was asking, how do we feel about the summer 2023 operation?
Next question.
Next question.
Yes, sir. Building on Bob's question, about a year ago, Chip stood up there with the microphone and he was taking all sorts of arrows because of the tactical cancellations, because marketing would absolutely preserve and overschedule the airline without talking to operations. Yesterday, you announced 10,000 cancellations in September and 6,000 in October. While it's only 6% of the operation for September, it doesn't seem like a big number. It really affects a lot of people. When are they going to get control of marketing to put scheduling and operations and ops and fly? Because you're really building ill will. And I don't ask that as an American pilot. I ask that as a travel agency owner who's trying to explain to passengers why they just lost their cruise trips.
Understood. That's an excellent question. Because of our operation, network planning does the best they can to forecast out. Some of our biggest challenges we have right now are pilot availability. We're hiring basically 55 pilots every week coming through the door, right? So there is a little bit of latency as far as them being able to upgrade and move forward. And looking at limitations with the training department as well, they do their best snapshot ahead. I do know that they have about 7.5% growth of domestic compared to last summer, which they feel good about. But a lot of it's tied with the regionals as well. Great question going forward. I don't know why they're so aggressive going out and then to pull back. I think that based on the timing of it, if they went ahead and just retracted and just played wait and see, they're going to lose a lot of opportunities with competition. But we agree with you on that. They are feeling that because it is months out, and you're right, cruise ships, all those sort of things that are high value, high dollar, that you have to plan ahead, they are affected. It's probably the most challenging industry I think you can have out there due to our margins, profitability they need to make up, a lot of the debt we have. They're being as aggressive as they can. And you're right, sometimes the passengers are going to suffer in that way. But at least now they can announce it 3-4 months out in advance. It's better than getting your knees cut off 2 weeks out.
It's strategic now, that's true. The second question I have, and this is real short notice, you may not have an answer. It came out last night that with discretion, with privacy, Air New Zealand's going to start weighing faster. We saw that in the Middle East airlines. They're so much more efficient than the U.S. airlines are at how they handle weight balance, restrictions, and cutoffs. To save money, the numbers will not be available, they will not be public, they will go into the computer like your luggage bags. way too early. And even my phone numbers is too early.
I think it's still too early. I know the airline will always look at any other initiatives other carriers have. I personally don't know how you'd weigh a passenger due to privacy rules and all that as well. We know we do the bags.
Neon lights.
Yes. And especially like the winter weights. Are they really realistic? No, but as an aggregate, they're pretty darn close. We get our low closeout. If you're within 3,000 or 4,000 pounds, sometimes you're lucky. I mean, seriously, think about it, right? But they have that pad body by Boeing and Airbus as well. I have not heard anything about them weighing passengers. Yeah. And that's one of the issues we have with the carry-ons. That's why we did the Oasis product as well for the overhead bins. That's why we got rid of a lot of the old aircraft. The 767 was not with the times because people prefer to carry their bags on. But you're exactly right. We have issues where if a passenger brings their bag down, they're given a certain weight. Now, when that bag has to go down the belly, it's weighed again. It's a penalty. But we try to bring that back to CLP to say, that's hurting us now because we have a weight restricted flight. We're hurting ourselves going forward. We're making initiatives in the IOC to try to address that now, but it's, like I said, it's one of the things on the project list, but it might be pretty far down. But great question. Thanks for asking.
Can I just ask you?
Go ahead, Deborah.
FAA audits. So we actually did a year and a half ago. They audit the weight of our customers and their bags. We actually have another one coming up. So we do have audits and we figure out what is the average weight. So
Yeah, so everybody hear that? So they do an audit. FAA will come in. How do they turn out? Do you get any results back?
that's it. We get the results. So then I think it's every 2 years they have to audit the
Yeah.
passenger weights, and it keeps going up.
Yeah, it's not going down, that's for sure, right? We're not in Italy here. Exactly. Yes, go ahead.
I'm not a commuter, but as somebody who used to fly Airlines for quite some time, when are we going to bring the jump seat into the DFW so we don't misconnect primary and alternate jump seaters, especially on the Airbus, and then have to worry about manning downline because they missed their flight and we burn reserves, which costs a whole heck of a lot more
Right.
than just adding that to the DFW.
I don't know if they're going to put that in the empty operating weight right now to do that, but I know contractual, we're going to talk about that, adding that in on the zero fuel weight for fuel for captains to have a jump seater. That's actually contractual come out. So that'll be adjusted. You're right, because it is, we look at the jump seat as pilots and all, but as the airline, that's not a super big focus. I hate to say that with that, but it's actually a very, very good question. But
The captain and or the FLFP are very important to the operation of the airline, and if they're competing and they're counting on that, and then all of a sudden, weather hits and you can't get on, and you don't have anybody left because weather's coming in,
right.
it makes a difference.
It does. I totally agree with you on that. There are those IROPS days are going to be tough all the way around. Absolutely agree with that. But something to look at for sure. To bring that in, if they're not actually there right now to add it to the empty operating weight, I don't know if they would do that, but I could pay that forward. You bet. Yes, sir.
What is the uniform policy these days? What's the party anyone can
Okay. Uniform policy. Oh boy. Talk about Pandora's box on that one. Nothing has really changed as far as hats are not required. Right? They're given that as new hires and first time you upgrade as captain. We are looking into it. We're going to change our revision here. We're going to allow socks that are like fun socks because you can't really see them. But we are looking very closely at uniform standards because who's to say I can't show up with purple hair? Right? Does it say anywhere I can't? Well, they're going to be out there trying it, right? So we're doing that. We're looking through the flight service as well. We have also the Crown Act here in Texas. They're talking about way where you can wear your hair and all that. So we're working through that with legal and labor. Some challenges we never thought about before, tattoos, that sort of thing. We're actually making all those changes and looking closely at them for September to be pretty much in line with most of the other airlines. I did talk a bit before about beards. Right now, I work with the FAA and our analysis with safety. We're not going to go that road as far as based on how many flights we have per day and the exposure we have. We're not compared to other carriers that have much fewer departures than we do, but I'm not going to say it won't change. But we're trying to stay, keep up with the times now and go with the safety route the best way possible. I'd love to see a new uniform, honestly. Put the quality into it where we should, but in due time. We're working on a lot of things now, and now we have the time to look at it. Before we were all worried about COVID, right, and even having people operate. I mean, think about it. In 2020, we operated 15% of the airline we're flying right now. 15%. We thought we were going to be here today. Now on the backside, we can concentrate on other things that are important to all of us and go forward. But thanks for the question. Sir.
You mentioned tattoos. I thought they had to be covered up in a sleeve.
That is going to be our policy, but we're still putting that in the FOM right now. Things take a lot of time. It's not a matter of just going like that. You have to look through a process and make sure you're in compliance with most of the carriers and what is going to be the best to protect our brand, but also give the rights of our pilots as well. Right? It's a very fine line. I know in the military especially, you're saying a lot of the enlisted, that there are challenges with us too, but basically we don't have anything exposed. What you do with your own time is fine, but we don't want to have that as far as for branding, and we follow out what flight service does too in that way.
Will that be the same for flight attendants?
Well, they have different standards, okay? They do. And we've got a lot of questions. That's what some pilots say is, hey, we see some good looking guys with beautiful beards and they look polished, right? Well, what happens when we have a rapid depressurization in the flight deck and inside your mask it says a CO is not guaranteed with facial hair? It's kind of hard to go against that, right? Not the same to discount what they're doing in the back, but also they have many flight service managers that monitor them much closer. And I agree, I've seen some flight attendants are questionable what they look like, but that's the same with pilots. How many pilots do you see wearing green Skechers walking down the terminal, black or whatever else? It's not the standard, right, but it's out there. It's challenges we have with almost 15,000 pilots. So, it's good challenges though, right? It is. Wow, a lot of questions about uniforms here. Pandora's box. Okay, anything else? I think I'm going to talk too long up here. Anyone else? All right, well, hey, thank you very much, everybody. It's great meeting you. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is pretty impressive, the management people we have here. We've got Bill, we got Tom working the deal, we got Deborah Becker, Jeff Price, where are you at? Yeah, we've got a lot of management coming in and supporting the APA. One thing I'd like to do right now is thank Cindy Dawson. I don't know why most people went over to check in with her than me. And then we've Jock. The other thing I'd like to know right now, how many wives are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think it's fantastic. Y'all are part of the team, and you put up with everything we all put up with, so I think it's fantastic we got that. Mike Miller, Many Flights. Would you like to say something in 1 minute?
Many flights?
Many Flights?
Well, yeah.
1 minute.
Okay. We're trying to get everybody to join. I believe they have the family awareness, and you can fill out a little card, and we'll put you on there and get notified that you're now enrolled and stuff. There's a little bit of time that we're taking to do this because there are a few of those guys that request it right now, and we're moving on to where there will be a lot more in the future. But we're trying to come up, trying to get Jock to maybe help me, because I think once we get a text, on your phone, you can know that there's a flight coming in, and then you can decide whether you want to come out and show up and congratulate the guys. And a lot of my cohort on APA that's a current line pilot, Greg Storm, is also helping me a lot. He has all the keys and can get in. And, I'm LTD, so I don't get an ID yet. So I have to deal with that. So they have to get me through. And we're going to look at putting them all on text. So everybody will get that and be able to be there. And like Greg says, it's just some time to come and celebrate all the guys that have retiring and eat cake for free. That's about it.
Great. And we've got Judy Tarver. Where's she at?
She's just wiped out.
Oh, she did. Okay. Did she leave for good?
I don't know, yes.
Anyway, Judy Tarver, I wish you were here. You know, we all appreciate everything she did over the years for us. The other thing is, you know, it's a great little triangle of cooperation we have here between APA, AA, and Gray Eagles. We have Ed Sicher and Chris Torres. Y'all want to come up here and talk? Everybody wants to hear from them. But one other thing, when I went over there with Marcy, and we actually get an APA retired card if you go over there. And it has a barcode on the back, and you go to meetings, whatever. There you go.
Hey guys, thanks for the invite. I apologize once again to the Gray Eagles for all the invitations I've accepted and then failed to show for. It's been a hell of a year with a contract, and just about every waking moment has been spent on this. I know that's probably what you all want to know right now, but before I go on to the contract and tell you what little I know, Chris had to step out. He's got some business in the building that's supposed to be mine, but fortunately I have a vice chairman that can take care of that. So his job was to throw tomatoes at me when I get too far out in front of my skis. So I'll say what I can. First of all, Gray Eagles, the mentorship and the camaraderie that you guys bring is huge. You know, I was back in, and you gotta listen to one of my stories, I know, sorry, and I know this has gone long, but I was one of the last F4 pilots in the door with the Air Force. I got that right out of training. You know, I wanted to go to Clark and then transition to the F-16. Instead, they sent me in an RF-4 to Zweibrück, and I had to go through Bergstrom Air Force Base for the RTU. And basically, you know, after I stopped feeling sorry for myself, I realized what a great deal it was. Because I got, as one of the last guys in the door on the F-4, I got to fly with all of our old Vietnam guys. These guys had thousands of hours in the airplane. They had hundreds of combat missions. They had actually been shot at. And, you know, here I am, the kid who thought he knew how to fly an airplane coming in, and these guys would beat the shit out of me every day. They'd beat me up in air-to-air. We'd go to the gunnery range. It was a nickel a bullet. I'd lose dollars there. We'd drop bombs. I'd lose a few bucks on the bombs. And we go home, and then here I am, the lieutenant, paying the majors and the lieutenant colonels for the pleasure of flying with them. But after I stopped feeling sorry for myself, I realized what value there was in the mentorship. And once I learned to just shut up and listen, I really learned a huge amount, more in my first 2 years as a lieutenant than I learned in all the rest of the years through lieutenant colonel. And this is the value I think you guys bring as Gray Eagles. I was just back there talking to Bob Morgan. He was our Secretary Treasurer in 97, 98, 99. They put the building on the face of planet Earth here for APA. I had never talked to him before. And some of the things that he told me are basically history repeating itself. Here we are, 25 years later, and we're doing the same stuff. In fact, I think that was the last contract, Section 6, that we inked was in 98. So the value that you guys bring by imparting what you've learned to the new pilots, and as you know right now, there's a record churn. It's insane. This is not the same airline that you and I were hired into, where you had to put 2 years in as a flight engineer. I think they paid me $17,000 a year to sit sideways. These new guys are getting $100,000 bonuses just for showing up. And their expectations are huge. And they sit in that right seat for all of about a year or two before they're captains. They don't have the ability to be mentored like I did, 14, 15, 16 years of watching somebody do it right and sharing with me what they did wrong so I could learn from them. So that's the value in the Gray Eagles, and right now, organizations like this are even more important because our old guys are going out the door with all those 20, 30 years of lessons learned, and we got a bunch of new guys, just like I was as a lieutenant, coming and thinking they know everything, and there's a lot to learn. That having been said, expectations on the contract are high because the new generation thinks that they're going to get another $100,000 to do just about everything. And as older guys, we remember back in 2000, after the B-scalers worked to get rid of that B-scale, and we were offered Delta minus 1% on the A fund. And what do? We said not only no, but hell no. And after 9/11, after age 65, after the housing downturn, after the bankruptcy, I mean, I could just keep going on. 25 years later, we're finally on the verge of signing our first Section 6 in 25 years. So at some point, you got to go, when is it right to take your chips off the table and be dealt another hand instead of doubling down, doubling down, doubling down? Hopefully we're there. I'm cautiously optimistic. I can't talk too much to the contract language because a lot of it isn't written, but for those of you who are still on the property in 2020, 21, 22, for the first time I've ever heard of, there's supposed to be a retro check given based on your W-2 earnings for those years. So that's one of the good things we've got baked into this. Hopefully the contract language comes out. That's the case. It'll be 4, 4, and 14. So if you earn W-2 wages in 2021, 22, 4, 4, and 14, you'll get some money back on that. Also, there's been some changes to a lot of things. We didn't get all the quality of life enhancements we wanted to in this contract. We've got a spreadsheet CEO who is looking at the numbers right now. And we're $8.5 billion into this next 5 years, and he's having a problem swallowing that bitter pill. You guys know what you bring to the operation. It's hard to get that in a CEO who's a numbers guy. You guys know how important the human element is. My hat's off to Bill and all of the work they've been doing on these IOCs and putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. But as you know, American Airlines, our margins trail. We trail the industry. We have 33% fleet-wide reserve headcount. When I started with this company, we were down at 15. And that's before we gave them PBS to eliminate, that's my wife, to eliminate, she has a habit of calling at bad times, to eliminate the conflict bidding. So I think where we're gonna go from now, hopefully we will approve this contract, we'll see what the members decide. And from there, we got to work on fixing the metrics so that during the next contract, we don't just match the industry, but we can absolutely leapfrog over it. We'll see. I could talk to other details if you want to talk sidebar. I have a few minutes. Bill's our board of director or LA chairman back there. He's going to give me a ride back. So I thank you for inviting me once again. I hope to make the next few now that this contract is hopefully behind us. And my hat's off to you guys for all that you do. Please continue to mentor our pilots.
Okay, also I'd like to thank Randy Ford, who sets all this up, and the ladies behind the bar. Let me see what else. One thing I liked, that it was a funny story. He was talking about kidding shoot a localizer approach, and he had to go shoot approach the runway tour or whatever. I can't remember if it was Alan or Bob talking about they were in Reno and they were flying with this captain that was smoking in the cockpit. It tells you how long ago it was. And they were looking at all the departure charts and setting us all up and everything. And the captain turned around, looked at them, grabbed the paper out of their hands, threw it in the trash can, and said, "See that hill out there? Go around it." We're coming to the end. What I'd like to know now, we just had Memorial Day. How many of you were flying on 9/11 and diverted? Beverly did? Anybody else? Yeah, a lot of us. Okay, one thing about Memorial Day, I like to think, who were the very first, if you want to call them veterans, whatever, casualties of the War on Terror? Flight 77 and 11. They were the first ones. Let me read them here. Flight 77 was Captain Charles Burlingame, First Officer David Charbloy, Purser Renee May, Flight Attendants Michelle Heidenberger, Jennifer Lewis, and Kenneth Lewis. And then on the other flight was Oganowski, let me see, Oganowski, McGinnis, flag tenants were Barbara Arestigui, Jeffrey Coleman, Sarah Lowe, Karen Martin, Kathleen Nicosia, Betty Ong, Jean Roger, Diane Snyder, and Maybelline Sweeney. They, along with the United crews, were the first casualties of the War on Terror. I'd like to have 30 seconds just to in their memory right now. Okay, everyone, thanks for attending. And this is the last one this summer. I think the next meeting we'll have will be in September. Are there any questions or anything to add or ask or anything? Okay, it's great seeing everybody.